Hey there, Shawna Karrasch here with another Ask Shawna answer. Okay, this one comes from Ramona, and she says, my 7-year-old gelding, Toby, is extremely mouthy. He was bought as a 2-year-old by an elderly couple who were thinking of taking up riding in their retirement. He's a bit dominating, not aggressive in a mean way, but very pushy. Anyway, they fed him treats over the fence constantly. They spoiled him rotten. But as he grew, they could no longer control him, and so they gave him to me. Long story short, I'm still working on his pushiness. I usually lunge him and do groundwork to get him to respect me. I've just started clicker training him and watching your DVDs, and I'm wondering, given the way he attacks my hand for the treat and mauls me as I try to leave, if food is the best way to deal with him. He lives for food. Few things scare him because he's just sure 90% of things in this world are edible. He does turn his head and wait for the click, but once I hold out the treat, he's full out attack on my hand. Any advice? Okay, Ramona, there's a few things you can do that might be able to change this up. First of all, I mean, they have taught him to reach out and go retrieve food by feeding him over the fence. I'm sure he was reaching out to them, so he just thinks, go get food, go get food. So I don't know why food has become so important outside of that they've used it as a mainstay of the only way it seems like that they could communicate with him. So, but the good news in this is it's so valuable that you have a really strong reinforcer for him, because it's something he puts a very high value on. And since he's not afraid of much, you know, you need something to help him to get his attention a little bit. So what I suggest you do, there's a couple things you can try. One is feed him feed him dinner and then do a session after he's already done eating. So that way he's already a bit satiated, he's had some food, he's not feeling quite so ravenous, excited about food, so he may be a little calmer about it because he's just eaten and he's not quite so, you know, intent. So that's one thing I would try. I would also try using a lower value treat. So maybe he loves cookies, but you know, hay replacer pellets are okay. You know, so maybe that can kind of settle things down a bit where it's not quite so exciting. Then there's a couple other things that you can try. So doing those things may help. And also another way that you might be able, and those are ways you can help set him up for success. Another way that you might be able to set him up for success is to do them after he has exercised. Which it sounds like you might be doing, so he's not quite so much a ball of energy, but a little bit more settled and a little bit more calm. The very early parts of the training, as they learn about the training, they're going to remember the emotional component that goes with it. So we want to help to work on with him calm and relaxed, calm and relaxed. So standing quietly like this is not calm and relaxed. Standing calm and relaxed is when they actually have a soft eye, soft head carriage, soft. So look for calm and relaxed in things. And sometimes you're going to have a little bit of tension, but be shaping it down to less and less and less. So look for more stillness, more softness, softness in the eyes, softness in the ears, softness in the jaw, softness in, you know, the muscles and the tenseness and, you know, the whole thing. So look for that to be a part of the training equation. So because he's very excitable about food, he may have that tension already in there. So look to get that settled by doing things like work using beforehand, so he's a little quieter, using a lower value food, and doing them after he's eaten. These are all things that may help him to be a little bit calmer and a little bit more relax, so you can get something to click and reinforce, so you can start to shape the right attitude. So that is one thing I would look for. Okay, as far as him physically getting your hand, there's a couple things you can try. Some people have found if they just give like 1 or 2 little kernels that the horses will get less grabby. I find that oftentimes they will get more grabby. So that if they get a big handful, they have a tendency to go, oh, okay, and they don't feel so desperate for it. They're not seeking. They kind of feel a little bit like, oh, okay. And another thing you can do in there to help to slow him down a little bit is when he is still chewing his last bite, offer him another handful. If he takes it calm, I would click, reinforce, and give him another handful. Now you're using the full mouth, which makes him less grabby because he's preoccupied with what he's got, but it gives you an opportunity to have him take it nicely. You can click that and you can reinforce it. So it gives you an opportunity to get something worth reinforcing. And then once we start to be able to reinforce it, we've just increased the likelihood of seeing that behavior repeated. So we have to shape that down to a softer thing. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing I do is sometimes I bring it up to them a little bit. So as they're eating, I bring it up, which a lot of times has them back off just slightly because they're trying to get it, but the position of it is changing. And so for them to get it, it kind of makes it a different place. If he's reaching out to it, and this happens, I worked with a zebra one time, and the people said, yeah, she's really good, but if you feed her grain, she bites you. If you feed her carrots, she's good. So I said, well, get me carrots, I'm not dumb. But she wouldn't take the carrots, so I'd say, get me the grain. And then I was offering the grain, and I could tell by the way she was taking it. She was totally trying to grab it. But I knew that what would happen is she would start to grab, people would start to pull away. So it made her more grabby because the food is retreating. So I just held my hand there, and she did didn't break skin, but bit me the first time. But then she softened because she realized it was going to stay there. So that's another thing. You have to kind of play with it. There's not a set answer here, but by sometimes changing the head carriage and having it come up a little bit as opposed to going away in fear of biting, a lot of times it has them soften because they're trying to readjust and they're readjusting up. So those are things and you can click and reinforce that even. You can click as they change and back off a little bit. So it is a behavior that you can train. So those are some things that you might try that I think will help you to get him to be softer about taking the food. And once you get it ironed out, I think you'll just go from there. And he does sound like he's one of those horses that is going to need some proper boundaries. And that doesn't mean you have to say respect or be driving him off and using physical things. But when he gets, if he gets too excited, I would say, you know what, you need to settle down. If you're not going to settle down, I'm going to step away for a minute. So that you put the onus on him. It should feel like 50-50 with the two of you working together. If it starts to feel like you're doing all the work and he's just doing whatever he wants. And we all slip into that sometimes. I do too. And sometimes I go, wait a second, am I begging you to do this? So it should feel like you're both kind of coming to meet each other in the middle. And if you feel like you're kind of doing all the work or putting up with all the stuff, sometimes you just got to back off a little bit and say, you know what, I'm going to step away and I'm going to come back when you want to settle down a little bit, or give him a few moments and help set him up for success. So think of what you could do to readdress it and maybe get that sorted out a little bit better. But always take the onus first on yourself. Little tiny bits, little tiny steps. And as you're going with him, what I would do is do very short, sweet sessions where where it's a lot of reinforcement, just a few approximations. So it's very reinforcing. Leave him with a jackpot feed. When you leave, what I also suggest you do, I kind of forgot about this part, addressing the end where he said he mauls you when you're wanting to leave. What I would also do in this situation is when you're done with the session, I would give him a jackpot. I would have a bucket ready where you can give him the rest of that food, and make sure it's a bit, enough that he's going to be eating it for a minute or so. That you give him that jackpot feed and you can leave. And you can leave so it kind of essentially becomes the session was good, this is the end of session cue. So it is a way that you can communicate, you did a good job, we're great, we're done, and he gets a magnitude reinforcement, also referred to as a jackpot feed. And another thing I would do, as you get him going, I would do things like, I don't know if he lives in a stall or a paddock or where he lives, but I would go in the stall, and do a little bit of a session, step out of the stall, maybe have him target, reinforce him. But when you reinforce him, don't reinforce him as he reaches over the stall or the gate or the panel or the fence or whatever it is. I would feed him inside. So reach your hand over inside to him. So he's not always reaching out to get it like he did with his last people, but it's coming back to him. So, and then I would go back in the stall and do a little bit, and then I would step back out again. And you can click and reinforce this nice soft relaxation, but he doesn't start learning that every time you leave, it's the end of the session. It's all, what have I got to lose now, but to try and get you to stay here. So you want it to be just as reinforcing for him when you leave as when you come and you go and you leave, and if you leave well, so he doesn't really, doesn't build up that predictability and that, kind of saying, that's it, that's the end, there's no more left. So working on that attitude, the attitude with him is going to be key. Well, it is for all of them, but it seems like we've got him a little askew in the overly confident, a little too bold, never had any parameters. Anyway, Ramona, That was a whole mouthful. I went off on like 19 tangents. Anyway, keep me posted on how he's doing and how you guys are coming along. I'd love to hear a progress report and how things are going along. And if you have any more questions, you or anybody else, please don't hesitate to get a hold of me at askshawna.com or shawnakarrasch.com. And until next time, enjoy getting your horse on target. Bye.